Hi, I'm Chuck Samikian,
And I'm John Tallheimer. Welcome to the HR Stories Podcast,
where there's a lesson in every story. Hey there, listeners. It's Chuck with the HR Stories Podcast, and with me today is...
John Tallheimer with the HR Stories Podcast.
Right, and together we are the team at HR Stories. You know, John, what are you planning to do this summer?
We got a lot of things going on here in our little hometown. I won't tell you where we are, in Virginia. And so we got a lot of things going on. We're really busy. I got a big project that I'm working on that I'm going to be launching hopefully in the fall. In fact, I already got a customer, Chuck, I think.
That's exciting news. I love it.
That's behind the scenes. We can't share it yet, but it is going to be something that's going to improve leadership.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I, John, am going to continue just pressing on. Got a couple of things going on. So listeners, what we're here to tell you is that we're going to take a few weeks off, but fear not. We have episodes from the vault. John, you want to tell them what Sam's going to do?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell Sam too. Hey, Sam, we forgot to tell you this, that we're taking some time off and we're leaving you in control. So that should be interesting. Yeah, so we got all these great episodes. I think we're up to 125 different episodes. So we asked Sam to go back into the vault, way back in the vault, and we're going to get into some of the cool cases. We got into our second year. We did the cases that changed, Supreme Court cases that changed HR. And so we're going to dive into some of that. We also have some other fan favorites that we're going to replay. And we're going to do that for a couple weeks, probably up to 5, maybe 6 weeks, depending on what's going on. But we're going to be paying attention. So if there's some major issue or something, we will jump in and do an episode around it, make sure everyone's up to date. So we don't want you to kind of do that. And then we're going to be back. We're going to launch some other things and we're going to do some stuff. So we're excited that you're listening. We do appreciate that. And it's really important to us. The other news, Chuck, do you want to tell them?
Sure. What's the other news? Why don't you tell them, John?
Let me whisper it to you. We're going to reduce the price of the book.
Oh, that's right. Our brand new book, been out for a couple of months. #1 bookseller, The Ultimate Guide to HR. The Ultimate Guide to HR. We're going to do some price adjustments, make it more affordable for everyone. It is available on Amazon.com in a hard copy or a soft copy, but we also have our PDF download. You want to go to ultimateguidetohr.com, Ultimate Guide to HR, to check that out.
Yeah, again, right, just to kind of do some stuff there. I think that's it. I think we babbled enough. We just wanted to drop in here before Sam started playing and Sam taking control and just let you all know what's going on. We will be back probably in the near future for sure. We got a lot of things to talk about, but we just need some energy thing. And so we know, and we're going to remind all of our HR people out there, you got to take time for yourself. And so we tell people that all the time, so we thought we'd do it.
John, we're back for another Q&A Stories edition on the HR Stories podcast. Last couple of weeks, I've been bringing forward some stories that I thought would be questions, but we've expanded that on that Q&A a bit, listeners. And some of these stories hit close to home from my past as an HR director. I pulled a few things from my vault, shall we say.
Like
yes.
Things that have happened to you along the way as a person with years of experience, right? And so I think that's great. So how do you want to do this today, Chuck? We hadn't really, this is, ladies and gentlemen, our listeners, I just want you to know, sometimes we do rehearse, we practice, we think about what we're going to say. And then there's days like this that Chuck said, come on down, come in your office, we'll do a recording real quick. So how do you want to handle this? We're just throwing it out.
I say we just launch into the questions and the stories and see where it goes from here.
All right. So I'm going to read the first question. Are you ready to answer it? This is, I think, from your experience, right?
Yes, this one, and this question comes up quite a bit. I've seen it on the Team of One HR in Facebook, the HR Team of One Facebook page. You and I teach a lot of training classes and development classes, and this question comes up, and then I get it at work as an HR director. Throughout my career, people have always wanted to fire someone because of a bad blank.
Yeah,
And
right.
people are like, bad body odor? I don't know.
Well, that's a whole nother question, right?
Yeah.
All right, here's the question, folks. Can you terminate an employee for attitude?
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's got attitude. She's got attitude. Well, what
Yeah.
do you mean attitude? They got attitude.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right. That's a great question. And I guess if I had to give a yes or no, I would say yes, but only if you do it the right way. And let me tell you a story about someone we're going to call Monique.
Not her
You
real name.
Yeah, unique Monique. So Monique was a restaurant server at a high-end restaurant. She'd been there for a while, knew the ropes, but had a bit of a reputation, and not for performance issues, because Monique was good at her job, and the guests resonated with her, and she did well with tips. But her main issue was, well, toxic, in that coworkers described her as rude and dismissive and difficult to work with. Now, we all know a bad attitude can be vague, right, John?
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering, so obviously that she was rude to her coworkers. Did the public think she was rude? Did the customers of the restaurant think she was rude, or was she polite to them and that kind of stuff? And I have a very funny story to share.
Yeah, in this case, no guest complaints, no
Oh, good.
customers, no guest complaints in over 2 years.
Wow. Okay. So really, she knew like her audience, right? She was playing her audience. That was the people that were going to give her the tips. So she was like right with it with them. With the coworkers, not so much.
Right. Yes. So we all know bad attitude can be vague, but this wasn't vague because Monique had been formally counseled on things like refusing to follow directions, creating unnecessary tension with coworkers, arguing with management, being repeatedly told to stay out of restricted areas, like perhaps behind the bar,
All right.
and dismissing feedback when it came up from her peers. So a few months back, or earlier, she had been issued a final counseling memo, and it was a zero tolerance warning. And it clearly stated that any further issues related to conduct, attitude, or insubordination would result in termination.
Okay. So basically, she was on her last chance. Like, and she knew clearly that she was on her last chance. I'm sure this was documented, had her signed, right? All boom. And then boom, she was on there.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it was very clear, final warning, zero tolerance. And she signed the memo. So fast forward a couple of weeks, and a server named Simone accidentally during the shift, and these things happen, John. It can happen when you're in a rush and there's servers and there's stations, but Simone accidentally takes one of Monique's tables during the morning shift rotation. Once again, honest mistake, it happens. And to her credit, Simone immediately went up and apologized, not once, but twice. But Monique wasn't having any of it. So you see, she brushed off the apology, raised her voice, made a whole scene. She said, "This is not an apology." Or she said, "It's not the apology, but it's how you apologized." And she wouldn't let it go. Simone walked away shaken. She was frustrated. And later, she even went back to Monique and tried to apologize again sincerely. And Monique shut her down. Then it escalated. And when I say escalated, it became the subject of conversation amongst the servers. The managers had to get involved, and people came down to HR, and it became a big shtick, shall we say. So a lot of time taken up for this. So we open an investigation, which is what we do. We open an investigation not to discipline Monique, but to really understand what the heck was happening here. And you see, John, that's when things got interesting.
So why wasn't she terminated right away? Or are you going to get into that in the story?
Yeah, because in regards to this situation, we were not investigating Monique. We were just trying to understand. In fact, it was the other server that Monique had made a complaint on, the one that took her table, the one that, had tried to apologize. And then when that didn't go well, in fact, the other server had said, well, that's why I don't talk to you anymore, and kind of made a little bit of a fussiness scene towards Monique. So we're like, okay, we need to get to the bottom of it.
All right, you wanted to understand what really happened. And so
exactly.
you did your investigation, and what happened?
Well, we talked to other staff. We heard the same story from multiple respected employees. People said they dreaded working with Monique, that she was rude, unapproachable, raised her voice, rolled her eyes, that she created tension every time she was on the schedule. And the days that she was not on the schedule, everyone seemed to be happy. And I'm talking about across ages, genders, race, skin color. It was all there was no disparate treatment or impact in this. And two of the servers that had been there a long time, highly regarded, said they were seriously consider quitting, or, if something hadn't been done. One even asked and said, everyone wants to know, why are you still keeping her here?
Oh, I hate those dreaded words, right? Why are you keeping her there, right? And I've heard that numerous times in my career. People would come to me and like, I don't understand why she's still here or he's here. And yeah.
Yeah. So, but the deal is, you got to give people a fair shake. You got to really give folks a chance to change. Okay.
Right.
So we also got a written statement from a manager who then, and a newer manager too, by the way, when we pulled him in and we said, well, let's take a look at some of the past things that have been going on in the restaurant. And he said, oh my gosh, you know what? Monique's doing that stuff now, even though we had told her not to do it. Monique's using her phone during shifts, sitting in guest areas, trying to manipulate the host to give her better tables, and having constant outbursts about small issues that literally no one else was upset about.
So now it's not just an attitude problem, it's a disruption, policy violations, and team morale issues.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what made this, I think, defensible. It wasn't vague. It was very subjective. We had a paper trail. We had a prior zero tolerance memo, multiple employee statements, managers' written account, and a clear pattern. So we suspended Monique pending investigation, finalized our review, and then ultimately, Monique was terminated. And I don't want to say for attitude, but there is a proper way to do this. And
yeah, I mean, again, I don't know if it's attitude. And one of the things I talk about when we're talking about employee expectations is, right. And so it's, again, what the job is, the task and responsibilities they have to do, but it's also those behavior norms, right? And getting those behavior norms and really talking about values. You have to be a team player. You can't get emotional on every little things. You can't try to steal other people's tables. You can't sit in the guest area, right? All those things are all defined behaviors that the managers and stuff should be having those conversations. And then when she's not doing it, maybe that attitude comes up. But then you're just like, yeah, but you're not meeting our behavior norms. You're not doing what we're expecting you to do. And I think, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I mean, you guys are very nice by doing that full investigation and that kind of stuff. I don't know if I was the manager in that role, I might have just fired her right then and walked out.
Well, it was an overall investigation just to see what was going on,
Yeah, I
but
get it.
then things came to light.
Yeah.
So, based on what you just shared, you got any final takeaways here for our listeners?
I I think again, right? Attitude is one of those things that can be very, 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 very subjective.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think we need to be careful about like, oh, they have an attitude. No, what behaviors are you noticing? That's a problem. If you come
Yes.
to me and I'm in HR and you say, oh, man, that Chuck's got an attitude, I'm going to be like, okay, so, right. And but if you come to me like, well, Chuck back talks to other employees or he yells at other people, or right. And so now I'm starting to see his behavior pattern. That's what we're going to address. So it's always to me, let's focus on behavior, behavior, behavior. And then we can then do investigations. We can look at it. We can get into the details to figure out what's going on. But don't come to me and say, oh, they have an attitude. Again, I get it. You're an employment at will state. I get it. However, let's try to figure out what that is. It's all about behavior norms for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tie the attitude to performance and other things. Also, here in this situation, John, progressive discipline does matter.
Yeah.
And you want to investigate every complaint, even if it seems minor at first, and find multiple sources, corroborate multiple sources. And I always believe in tying things back to the policies and values of the company because that's the foundation.
No, I think that's good. And you know, you're not terminating for attitude, you're terminating for documented misconduct.
Yeah. So my next QA story is going to be a little bit of a twist on toxicity, but this is someone that may have walked off the job mid-shift because they claim it's too toxic to work. So our second question, what should you do when an employee walks off the job mid-shift? What would you do, John? I'll tell you the story. What would you do?
Yeah, and so it's fascinating. So when I first read this question, I was thinking about, I was working as a production manager for a regional theater. It was a dinner theater, actually, and we always had 2 servings every day. And this new employee came in first day. And so we did training on the first show, blah, blah, blah. And so we told her to be back an hour before the second show. Our call comes, she's not here. Half an hour, she doesn't show up. She's not answering her cell phone. Nothing's happening. And so the next day I go to HR and I'm like, she just never came back. I don't know what happened. She just never came back. And HR is like, yeah, she called us and she doesn't want to work there. and again, right, there's a lot of things going on there. And we were just like, okay, well, that's just weird. You know, just to walk off like, whatever. But I hear, you know, it's happening more and more. So
yeah, so it is something a lot of managers have faced. And, you know, you're in the middle of a busy lunch rush. I've seen it. I've had it happen. And one of our employees takes off their apron, mumbles something under their breath, walks out the back door, walks out the front door, no notice, no explanation, just gone. So what do you do?
Right. Well, I mean, again, don't panic. You don't know what's going on with that employee. Like that's my that holistic approach. Like what's going on, what's happening. Don't send an angry text because that's going to come back to bite you. And so it's really, again, focus on the work, get the work done for now. Check in with that employee. Hey, you okay? Anything I need to do? Like, because it could be a medical emergency. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. And so then you're going to sit down and go, all right, what triggered this? Is this part of a pattern or a one-time outburst?
Yeah. And I like that idea of don't send an angry text. Don't put anything in text messages. It just is not worth it. They last forever. And if it's something, you know, if you say something wrong in the text message, that's exhibit A in some sort of litigation. But I've seen several things where someone just got upset because they were asked to do something or change a policy and they're like, I'm out of here. Or someone actually had an accident, like,
Yeah.
out there, in their pants type of thing. And they were
Right.
embarrassed, didn't want to say anything. They rushed out. I've seen it's, without getting graphic on things. So
Yeah.
it can happen. But let me tell you a story. This is at a restaurant I consulted with last year as a line cook. Let's call him Marcus. So
Marcus.
Marcus walks out mid-shift during a Saturday dinner rush. Just left his station, didn't say a word, like drove off. The sous chef, which is kind of like the first line manager in the kitchen, was furious, wanted to terminate him on the spot, like call him and say, hey,
Yeah.
you left, you're fired. And then so HR follows up. Oh, here comes HR. They won't let me fire anyone. Okay, I guess it's okay to walk off the job, right? So follow up the next day. HR finds out Marcus had received, and my HR people know exactly where I'm going here. But they found out Marcus had received a call that his teenage son had been arrested, and he panicked. He didn't tell anyone because he didn't think he'd be allowed to leave, and he didn't for some reason didn't trust the manager on duty, the sous chef. So he just takes off.
Yeah, and I mean, and it says a lot, right? It says a lot about that team and the relationships on that team, right? Because he doesn't trust that manager on duty. Like, if I don't trust my manager and I'm like, I just got to go, versus if I trust my manager, I'm like, oh my God, my son just got arrested, I got to go. That, if I trust him, the sous chef's going to be like, yeah, go. Right?
Yes, I know.
Right? Just
I
go,
know.
go. You take care of that. We'll figure out what here. Let us know what's happening. Right? And so Marcus obviously didn't trust the manager on duty. It says that there. And this is why it's so critical investigate before you escalate. Right? I love that.
Investigate before you escalate.
Yes.
I love that.
So, but it's funny because, again, I do a lot of emotional intelligence workshops. And this is what we're telling people all the time. Don't react, respond, right? And so what is the right thing? So HR gave Marcus a chance to explain. And why walking off the job isn't okay, they ultimately issued a final written warning, not a termination. They also use it as an opportunity to build better communication protocols for emergencies, right? And so, again, what do you do in that case, right? You have that employee like, I got to go, right? And so we've all dealt with that at some point. Something happened for one of our employees. Maybe one of their family members arrested. Maybe somebody's sick. I don't know. Those things come up, and like, what's the protocol?
Yeah, and Marcus wasn't been there like years, but he'd been there long enough, well-liked, well-respected. But here's the deal. So I got some people saying, oh, you just let him go, just let him go. And you hinted at this a little bit. And no, we're not going to just let it go, but we're going to look into it. And, we're going to document it. We contact the employee. We held an investigatory meeting. We investigated the situation. We applied our policies consistently, but with a human lens, lens here, and train the managers on how to be cool in the moment, because like you said, not every walkout is a dramatic quitting. Sometimes there's other things involved, but if it's truly job abandonment, meaning they don't come back, they don't respond after a reasonable window, obviously document everything and follow your termination process, but don't make those assumptions.
Yeah, and again, right, and I think we do, right. We always we have a story playing in our head, and that there's an abandonment here. They're letting us down. They're letting the team down. That's unacceptable. You can't do that. And I always go back to this. There's a great book called Crucial Confrontations. It's in one of the series. You have Crucial Conversations, Crucial Confrontations, Crucial Accountability. And in that book, the authors say, always ask yourself, why would a sane, rational, intelligence person behave that way?
Okay, yeah.
And it's just a good, oh, Why would somebody leave middle shift? Marcus has been here for a long time. He knows not to leave. Did somebody say something? Did he get sick? What's going on? Think empathetically, there might be something in there.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
All right. I got one more question story for you, John. And this has to do with sexual harassment. And I've just been doing a whole series of respectful workplace, sexual harassment, talking about quid pro quo. You know what quid pro quo is, right? This for that.
Yeah.
If you do a little sum for me, little sum, you'll get a good schedule. You'll get, certain things. And usually it's manager to employee, like a position of power. But
Chuck, I was teaching today, right? I was teaching for HR professionals today.
yeah.
And I used your story that you shared with me. Wait, let me make sure this isn't the story. I haven't looked ahead. Maybe it's the story. I'm going to ruin the whole story. I don't think it is. No, it's not. But you had a manager. You told me this story where there was a manager that was working in a restaurant.
Yes.
And one of his employees wanted some vacation days.
Yes.
And he said, well, you can have them, but you got to dance for them. And that story sticks with me. So I was sharing them like that would be quid pro quo, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you got to dance. If you want them off, you got to dance.
Yeah. The exact quote was, I'll give you your vacation time that you requested if you see that pole back there, if you do a dance for me on that pole.
It's not funny. I'm sorry. I'm just envisioning it. And think about the power differential there, right? Because we're going to talk about where there's not much power differential. But the power differential when you have a manager that controls your income saying, go to that pole and do a dance and I'll give you some time off. Now, some people would be, and I hope everyone would stand up and go, no, absolutely not. I'm out of here. And then you can find another server.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, today, this
story.
next question, and so that's quid pro quo, but can quid pro quo sexual harassment occur between coworkers if one is not a manager? And the answer is absolutely it can.
All right.
Because harassment isn't just about titles, it's about power. And let me tell you a story. Names changed. About a case where same-sex, and it's same-sex harassment too, John. Not, you always think of it male to female or something. This is same-sex between two male employees, which turned into a clear violation of policy and the law. Let's call them Ryan and Marco. So Ryan and Marco, they both work in the same department at a private club. Ryan had been there longer. He knew the inner workings of the operation, had the respect of the leadership team. So Ryan's there. He's not anyone's direct manager, but he's clearly influential. He trains the new hires. He handles maybe the more complex side of the job. Hey, we need some, get Ryan. Ryan's not a supervisor, but he is a trustee in many cases. And if you wanted the best shifts, or the easier shifts or duties, it helped to be on Ryan's good side. And then came along Marco. So Marco gets hired. He's newer to the team. He's got the same role as Ryan on paper, but he's not nearly established. In fact, Ryan was his trainer. So Marco, even though they're the same level, Marco's looking up to Ryan. But then something fell off a bit. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Marco comes to HR and he says, I feel uncomfortable. He didn't use the word harassment at first. He just said, Ryan is making things weird. And when we dug in, guess what we found?
It wasn't one big incident. It was a buildup of incidents?
Yes, yes. It started small. Jokes about Marco's clothing. Um, and remember, Marco's the new guy, right?
Right.
So there's jokes about Marco's clothing, playful shoves, just messing around with you type of behavior. But it escalated because Ryan started texting Marco after hours and he made suggestive comments. He'd call him cutie in front of the other coworkers. And Marco didn't feel he could speak up because Ryan had some pull
Had influence. Yeah.
and influence. And one day Ryan says, if you hang out with me after work, I can make sure you're not stuck with the garbage shifts. And I know you may think, okay, he was just saying it like, hey, let's be friends, let's hang out. But with the buildup of everything and the touching and the pushing and kind of like the little what's the word? Little innuendos that were
Yeah.
being said. That's when Marco realized this just isn't appropriate. This is starting to get really weird. And he didn't know the word quid pro quo, but he came to HR and said, I'm just concerned about my job if I offend this guy and don't
Yeah.
go hang out with him.
Yeah, and I mean, again, right? It's all about the context too, right? It's not like, oh, just one thing. It's the context. How do I feel? Right? And we always have to be empathetic as HR people to be understand what that person is feeling when they come to us and talk to us. So look, Ryan wasn't a manager per se. He was offering favorable treatment in exchange for what? A relationship, a date? What was
It,
he thinking was going to happen?
yeah, it wasn't explicit, but it was clearly a situation where Marco felt pressured. He believed that saying no to Ryan's advances might cost him better assignments, and that's quid pro quo harassment, plain and simple. In this case, Marco, like Ryan, if you can imagine like a host at a restaurant,
Yeah.
and so you might have a host and a server, they're kind of on the same levels, but the host takes the guests in, the host then decides which server gets what tables, that sort of thing. It was the same kind of situation with Marco and Ryan. And like I said, Marco feels pressured. And here's the key for all of this, though.
Yeah.
HR does not wait. We launched an investigation that same day. We interviewed Marco privately. We pulled text messages, John. I mean, I'm telling you, they reveal a lot, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
we interviewed coworkers. Several confirmed they had witnessed the flirting, the comments, and even one incident where Ryan had rubbed Marco's shoulders in the break room.
So HR did exactly what we always preach: act quickly, document, and be fair to both parties for sure.
Yeah, quick remedial action. And so we brought Ryan in, we laid out the concerns. He admitted to some of the behavior, but tried to laugh it off. I'm just being playful, and it didn't mean anything. But intent isn't what matters. Impact does. And there was really a lot more to this. So the behavior that really led us to believe that it was a violation of our policy, which stated that unwelcome conduct, whether sexual, suggestive, intimidating, violates those standards. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. I'll give you a better shift, a schedule, that sort of thing. Even if it's subtle, even if it's between peers, that's quid pro quo.
So what happened next?
Yeah, we made the decision to terminate Ryan's employment, and it wasn't taken lightly. Ryan was a good employee. He's a trustee in many ways, but multiple corroborating accounts, inappropriate messages, text messages on the phone, a clearly documented power dynamic, even without any formal managerial authority. And just as important, we supported Marco. We supported another employee. He was given time to decompress. We offered him some advice, some resources, and reassured the organization we had his back. But more importantly, outside of that, I should say more importantly, but just as importantly, it sent a message to everyone else. It sent a message
Yeah.
that we were not going to tolerate this behavior and that we were going to act in a fair, impartial manner, even if we liked the employee.
Yeah, I think that's a good message. And I think one of the things, and I know we'll get into the key takeaways in a second, one of the things that I always think about, and I tell everybody when I'm consulting, when I'm working with HR managers, training them to be better, it's anyone, right? A supervisor in this case, right, is anyone with perceived employment decision making over the employee. And in this case, Ryan had perceived employment making decision over Marco. And it's right there. And I think you have to do what's the right thing for the organization. Because I was thinking, like, what would you do? Right? You couldn't keep Ryan and Marco working together. That's not going to work. And then again, right? If it's a big resort, maybe you have another restaurant, you could put them up in another restaurant, whatever. But that's may not be the best thing. So I think terminating was probably the right decision. As harsh as it seems, I do think terminating, because it does send that message that we care about the policies and we're going to enforce the policies time and time again. And it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. And that title, the title of someone has doesn't always reflect the influence they carry. And harassment can come in many forms, overt or subtle, male or female, same sex or not. That's why training, clear policies, and decisive follow through are paramount.
Yeah, and I really love this story. And what I love about this, I think it's a great teaching story, right? I think it could be a great case study in your classes. It's just a great story of one, it's male to male. So that's always interesting. Like, how does that play out? It's two, coworkers, same level, but different influence, different power on the staff. And so how does that play out? And what do you need to do as the HR manager? And I think you guys did it right and made sure that things happened. I like it. I like the story. I loved all the stories today. I think your stories were great, Chuck. And I love when you come to the HR Stories podcast and bring your experience with you. Because I think people get to see that. And I also think you have a good level of in-depth things that you can see, like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that, right? And again, it might be simple for you, Chuck, but I know there are HR managers, there's HR generalists out there, there's HR directors, office managers that are like, oh, I would never know how to deal with it. And so I love that you bring these stories to help us kind of go get better at it. So thank you.
So folks, you've been listening to the HR Stories podcast. There's a lesson in every story. We'll be still around. We're going to be providing you with some stories from the vault. Don't forget to check us out or the team of or the HR Team of One Facebook page. Go to the Ultimate Guide to HR.com. Ultimate Guide to HR.com. Did we get that, John? Ultimate Guide to HR.com.
Or you could go to the team at HRstories.com.
Or team at HRstories.com and read all about us.
Go to Amazon to get the book. It's at the book. Go to Amazon to get the book. It's definitely there. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully we'll hear you next week. Drop on in. And don't forget to send your questions. We love helping you out. I just had a listener call me directly, set up a meeting on my calendar. We had a great conversations about challenges she's having. And so maybe I'll bring that story the next time around.
Fantastic.